But before all of that, we're discussing two big crime stories today. First, almost 20 years since Madeleine McCann went missing, German police are carrying out fresh searches in Portugal this week.
Criminologist David Wilson is with us in the studio. Good morning to you, David.
Morning.
Nice to have you
Nice to see you both.
First, though, we're going to go live to Good Morning Britain's chief correspondent, Richard Gaisford, who's at the scene in Lagos in Portugal, just around the corner from Praia da Luz, where Madeleine went missing. Good morning, Richard. Thanks for joining us this morning. Now, this is the story that both of us have reported on for nearly 20 years, of course. What can you tell us about what's happening today?
Yeah, well, it's another time, Ben, when we've rushed back to the Algarve because there appears to be some sort of development on the horizon. A huge amount of activity happening up the track behind me here this morning. German police have been going up that track in their vehicles to start a search of rural properties that lie just outside of Lagos, which is a few kilometres to the east of Praia da Luz, where Madeleine McCann went missing. Take a look at our drone footage and you can see that dilapidated, ruined, overgrown farmhouse that is the focus of this morning's search. We're told there's going to be 21 properties like this that police will be looking at over the course of the next few days. So they've set up a base that you can also see from our pictures just a bit further down. Tents have been set up there. There's a police van, and that will be growing throughout the day as more police officers get involved, looking for any evidence they can find that links to the disappearance of Madeleine McCann back in May of 2007.
And what evidence are they hoping to find, Richard?
Well, Kat, that's the big question, because we're not entirely sure why they're here or what new intelligence they have. They will be looking for anything that might, be effectively linked to a body of someone who may have been laying in situ for 18 years, evidence of other people that might have also been linked to a potential crime. We're thinking that they'll be using new ground-penetrating radar equipment that wasn't available to them in previous years. You'll recall that the Metropolitan Police have been searching in and around Praia da Luz for many years. They have offered support to the Germans, but won't be here. And it's just going to be a very long haul, I think. I don't think that we're expecting a big reveal, a big discovery in the next few hours.
Okay. Well, look, Richard, thanks so much for joining us this morning. I know you're going to be continuing to report on this the next few days as well, but it's good to have you on the show. David Wilson's here in the studio with us. I guess one of the questions that everyone will be asking, and Richard sort of touched on it, is why? Why now? As Kat was saying, what could it be that they find that would lead them to sort of understand a bit more of what might have happened to Madeleine? Because most of this area, I'd imagine, over the last 18 years, has been covered.
Well, there's only one of two possibilities, and the first possibility is that the German police really do have new information. There has been some intelligence that's led them to these 21 sites. Or the second possibility is the main suspect, somebody called Christian Bruckner, is going to be released from prison in September. And so the police are literally simply dotting the I's and stroking the T's. Because as you were pointing out there, Ben, this is an area, Christian Bruckner has been a suspect since 2013. So we've already known where he was living to the east of Praia da Luz. So presumably this site has already been searched, but perhaps not with the new ground-penetrating radar, which has become available to the police. And that ground-penetrating radar will look for disturbances beneath the surface. And those disturbances create a map that can be read, and that map will show if there has been a body or some disturbance that there shouldn't have been in that area.
And why are they still spending so much money on this case?
Yeah, well, that's really the question. And we know, for example, that the Metropolitan Police have been given over £100,000 for the rest of the year in relation to this case. Now, that money is paying for, not people going to Praia da Luz, but that money's paying for, I think, 2.5 members of staff. Now, it may be that that money was given because they want to see all of this stuff to be completed prior to, it was called Operation Grange, trying to finalise Operation Grange. But you're absolutely right. This is an iconic case that, you know, this channel has a lot of history in terms of bringing to public attention, because it was dear old Martin Frizzell that first put...
I was on the sofa on GMTV the morning that the phone call came in, and he was our editor at the time, and he put the phone call through to the studio, and it was Madeleine's aunt, wasn't it? Who then spoke
from Aberdeen.
Put her on air. And I think we've got the moment that Kate, I was with Kate on the sofa, that she broke the news.
You're watching GMTV. We have some breaking news for you this morning that's just coming into us. It is feared that a 3-year-old British girl has been abducted in Portugal. Local police say the girl was on holiday with her parents in the resort of Praia de Luce in the Algarve. We'll obviously bring you more details on that as we get it.
I thought that was funny because we learned how to say Praia de Luce.
I said exactly the same thing. I said one of the things that happened, it was Martin was talking to us and talking via the gallery, saying we've got this aunt, she wants to talk to us. She's in a small Portuguese village, and it is tiny Praia de Luce, and we didn't really know how to pronounce it, didn't really know where it was, and that's what happens when you're breaking news, and so slowly the pronunciations of these things become more apparent.
And remember, and so it's back to Kat's question. Someone goes missing in this country every 15 minutes.
Yeah.
So this is a case that's still being investigated after 18 years. And I do think there has to come a point at which, with no disrespect to the McCanns, you have to say no more taxpayers' money can be paid to keep this case open. It has to be closed. Enough has been done that can possibly be done. And I think that's why it's really important that the I's are dotted, the T's are stroked, every possibility is investigated.
Is any chance of finding something and giving them some sort of closure, though, that would be what we'd all be desperate for.
Yeah,
as well.
Absolutely. Thank you, David. Let's move on to our second story now. Over in the States, another story has been dominating the headlines. It's the Sean Diddy Combs sex trafficking trial.
Well, now, in a groundbreaking move, the courtroom, where cameras have actually been banned for this trial, have been brought to life using AI. Take a look at this.
This is Sean Combs. To the public, he was Puff Daddy, or Diddy, a cultural icon, a businessman larger than life. But there was another side to him, a side that ran a criminal enterprise.
Sean Combs is a complicated man. This case is about love, jealousy, infidelity, and money.
The government calls Cassandra Ventura. How do you know Sean Combs?
We were in a relationship for a little over 10 years, 11 years.
Well, in just a moment, we can speak to the woman behind the AI videos, Law&Crime Network President Rachel Stockman in New York. But first, we'll be, of course, being joined by David Wilson. AI suddenly recreating courtrooms. What do you think about this, David?
Well, it's groundbreaking.
It is.
And personally, I'm supportive of it.
Yep.
I'm supportive of it with certain caveats. But at the end of the day, you know, what this demonstrates is the public interest in high-profile court cases. And quite apart from this case, there's Luigi Mangioni's cases coming up, Brian Kohlberger's cases coming up. The top downloaded podcast at the moment in the world, knocking Joe Rogan off the #1 spot, is the American podcast about P. Diddy. What this demonstrates is that people want to be engaged with this kind of material.
They want to understand what's going on. We, over here, we don't have courtroom cameras. In the States, usually they do. Why is this court case not being televised?
Because it's a federal case.
Okay.
So in the United States, a number of the states will allow cameras in, mobile phone technology in, but in the federal cases, it isn't allowed in. In this country, remember, Scotland does televise some cases. Yep. In England and Wales, sometimes we see the judge passing sentence.
That's right.
And of course, in this country, what we rely on, if this case was being held in England and Wales, we'd rely on the four state-approved courtroom sketch artists. That's all we would get to see of the court, unless we were a member of the public and turned up at the court ourselves to get a public seat.
Well, let's talk to Rachel, who's there for us this morning. Thank you for joining us, Rachel. It's absolutely fascinating looking at what Law and Crime have done and using AI to recreate this courtroom scene. How long had you been planning to do this?
Good morning to you guys. Yes, we've been working on this for about a year using various AI models to kind of put together the technology so we could have the most accurate depiction possible using AI.
It's really interesting to watch because it's quite hard to imagine it being real. You're using the actual words that have been used by the lawyers and the defendants or the people who are on the stand, and yet we're looking at what looks essentially like a comic or a video game in some way.
Yes, and we are very, very transparent. That was super important to us, that we are transparent, that this is AI generated. You'll see right on the screen there, we say AI generated. We have a warning explaining to folks how we did this. And then there's metadata as well underneath each of the videos. We use the real courtroom transcripts, so we get those every day directly from the court. And then our team here, led by a producer, who does have editorial input, works with 4 different AI models to generate what you're seeing here on screen.
And Rachel, what about the jury? Because you can't show the jury's faces.
Yes, so we showed a couple of shots of composite characters that are totally made up of the jurors, and we have also disclosed that in the metadata that these are not real characters. They have no likeness to the actual jurors because we were very conscious not to run afoul of any of the court or the judge's rules with regards to covering a courtroom case. And in so many ways, we actually think what we did here is a more accurate description of what's happening in court versus courtroom sketches, or you hearing from a reporter who's been sitting in court all day, hearing their interpretation. This time you're hearing the actual courtroom transcripts.
How do you ensure, though, Rachel, because there's some criticism that actually what you're doing is you're sensationalising what is a very serious trial, a federal trial, as David was saying, that it shouldn't be shown on camera at all, and you're sensationalising that and you're doing it for entertainment. How do you answer that criticism?
So I've long been an advocate of cameras in the courtroom and transparency. Here in the United States, as you mentioned earlier, we are quite transparent, and most courtrooms do allow cameras in the courthouse. However, the federal courthouse does not allow cameras. And so we are doing this to be as most transparent as possible, and we plan to do it for other high-profile criminal cases or even cases that are before the U.S. Supreme Court that are of national importance to the citizens here in the U.S.
Are you doing it to be transparent, or are you doing it to get around the rules and get people to watch your channel and to sensationalise what is going on in the courtroom?
So we're journalists, Ben, and we're using all of the tools that are available to us to help tell stories. Kind of like 20 years ago, 30 years ago, courtroom sketches were used, transcripts were perhaps read aloud. We're just using the tools that we now have available to tell the story of what's going on in court. And I encourage many journalists in an ethical way to do that as well.
What do you think, David? Do you think because there was a moment also with Amber Heard and Johnny Depp where people were watching it almost like a soap opera unfolding?
Well, but it simply shows, I've never met Rachel before, but I tend to be saying some of the same things.
Yeah.
This is the criminal justice system, and the public has to be engaged with the criminal justice system. The public has to understand the law and how people are found guilty or indeed innocent. Remember, Sean Combs is innocent until proven guilty. My own view is, and I'd be interested about what Rachel says, sometimes, though, the AI can't give context. I mean, for example, I did watch the most incredible testimony so far in the prosecution's case was of Deontay Nash, Sean Combs' stylist. And every time he spoke, it was like a nail being hammered in Combs' coffin, because what he was doing was standing up Cassie Ventura's allegations. What he was doing was standing up the racketeering that's behind the RICO clauses within the charges that have been laid against Combs through Bad Boy Records. So the only thing I would say, Rachel, is about context. You know, some of that context is missing. Why this person and why, what are they saying, how that matters to the prosecution or the defence.
I know we're massively over. Rachel, is that a fair question and a fair criticism, though?
Certainly, and at Law and Crime, we also do provide that commentary. Like you all, we have analysts or reporters that have been covering this case for a long time, and they do breakdown videos interpreting some of the testimony that we see in court. The AI videos that you showed are kind of the unvarnished, unfiltered look at exactly what was happening in court. If folks don't want to hear the commentary and just want to hear firsthand what's happening in court.
Well, look, we appreciate you joining us this morning,
thank
Rachel.
you.
It's absolutely fascinating. It's good to get your perspective on it. And David, thank you for offering some thoughts as well. We do need to point out that Sean Combs denies all charges. Oh, hello.
Right then.
Thanks for visiting our This Morning YouTube channel. We upload tons of new content every single day. So hit the subscribe button, like all the videos, and don't miss out. We'll see you in the morning.